Have you ever opened your refrigerator, looked at the food you forgot was even there, and felt that tiny sting of guilt? Not because you meant to waste it, but because life got busy. You bought more than you needed, and somehow good food quietly turned into trash. A family of 4 in a typical American city can easily lose hundreds, even thousands of dollars a year this way, not through one dramatic mistake, but through small, invisible leaks. The same thing happens with money in almost every corner of modern life. From the car payment that seemed reasonable at the dealership, to the daily coffee that felt harmless, to the online order placed at midnight because the checkout button was just too easy. Most people do not go broke because of one huge financial disaster. They go broke slowly, comfortably, and politely. One upgraded phone, one brand name, drink, one car loan, one lunch delivery, and one impulse purchase at a time. It never feels like a crisis in the moment because each decision feels small enough to ignore. $5 here, $20 there, a few $100s a month on something that makes life feel a little nicer. But when you stretch those choices across a year or 5 years or 20 years, they become the quiet line between always feeling behind and finally building something solid. The uncomfortable truth is that the habits that help people keep money are rarely exciting. Nobody gets applause for driving the same car for a few more years. Nobody posts a dramatic video about packing lunch in a plastic container or making coffee at home before work. Social media rewards the shiny moment, the new purchase, the vacation upgrade, the luxury bag, the fresh car interior, the table full of expensive food. But wealth, real wealth, is usually built in the opposite direction, through habits so plain and repetitive that they almost feel embarrassing. That is why this conversation matters. We are not talking about getting rich overnight, catching the perfect stock, buying crypto at the bottom, or finding some secret side hustle that changes your life by next Thursday. We are talking about the boring financial habits that do not look impressive from the outside, but quietly keep thousands of dollars in your pocket. And the strange thing is, when your money life starts to feel a little boring, that may actually be the first sign that you are finally moving in the right direction. Let us start with the first habit: keeping your current car longer than your ego wants you to. In America, a new car can easily come with a monthly payment that eats up several $100s before you even count insurance, registration, maintenance, gas, parking, and repairs. The dealership makes the monthly number sound manageable, almost harmless, as if the only question is whether you can afford the payment. But the better question is not whether you can afford the payment. The better question is what that payment is quietly stealing from your future. A car is one of the easiest places to confuse comfort with status. You tell yourself you need something newer, safer, cleaner, more reliable, and sometimes that is true. But many people are not replacing a broken car. They are replacing a perfectly usable car because they feel behind when a coworker pulls into the parking lot with something newer. The old car starts to feel like a personal failure, even if it still gets you to work, carries your groceries, and starts every morning without complaint. That little feeling of embarrassment can become very expensive if you let it make decisions for you. The painful part is that new cars lose value fast. The moment a car leaves the lot, a chunk of its value disappears. And during the first few years, depreciation can be brutal. You might buy something for $40,000. Then watch it become worth far less while you are still making payments on it. That difference is not just a number on paper. It is money you worked for hours of your life, weeks of stress, mornings when you dragged yourself out of bed, all converted into a machine that is becoming less valuable every month. A more practical move is often to buy a reliable used car that is 3 to 5 years old, especially from brands known for durability. By that point, the first owner has already absorbed the steepest drop in value, and you can still get years of useful life if the car has been maintained well. It may not impress anyone at a reunion. It may not make your neighbors look twice, but it does the job. And sometimes doing the job without draining your bank account is exactly what financial maturity looks like. Now imagine this difference over time. Instead of locking yourself into a large car payment, you keep driving your older car or buy a modest used one. Then redirect even a few $100s a month into savings, an emergency fund, a retirement account, or a simple long-term investment. Month by month, it may not feel dramatic, but after 10 or 15 years, the person who chose the boring car may have options, while the person who kept upgrading may only have a trail of old payments and vehicles that lost value. One person arrives at work with a slightly older dashboard. The other arrives with a future that is quietly being drained. This does not mean you should never enjoy a nice car. It means you should know exactly what you are trading for it. If you are financially stable, investing consistently, debt is under control, and the purchase truly fits your life, then that is a different conversation. But if the car is mostly there to protect your image, to make you feel like you are not falling behind, or to keep up with people who may be drowning in payments themselves, then it is not transportation anymore. It is a costume, and costumes are expensive when you wear them every day. The second habit sounds even less glamorous, but it may change the way your household spends money every week. Rotate a small set of familiar meals instead of trying to reinvent dinner every night. At first, that sounds dull, especially if you love food or feel like dinner should always be interesting. But for families who actually manage to save money, this kind of routine can become a quiet superpower. When you know your go-to meals, you know what ingredients you need, how much they cost, how long they last, and how to use them before they spoil. The reason this works is simple. Most grocery budgets get destroyed by randomness. You walk through the store, hungry, inspired, or stressed, and suddenly the cart fills with sauces, snacks, frozen meals, trendy health foods, and ingredients for recipes you may never actually cook. Then the week gets busy, takeout happens, plans change, and the groceries sit there aging in silence. By the weekend, the lettuce is wilted, the leftovers look suspicious, and the freezer has become a museum of forgotten intentions. A rotating meal plan removes a surprising amount of friction from your life. You stop asking the exhausting question, what should we eat tonight after a full day of work? You stop buying ingredients that have no clear purpose. You start cooking faster because repetition makes you better. The meals do not have to be boring either. 5 or 6 reliable dinners can feel fresh with different sauces, seasonal vegetables, small changes in seasoning, or a different side dish. The point is not to punish yourself with bland food. The point is to stop letting your grocery cart behave like it has no adult supervision. Once you repeat the same meals enough times, your grocery spending becomes predictable, and predictable is powerful. You know what a normal week should cost. You know when something is overpriced. You know which ingredients will actually be used instead of becoming expensive decoration in the back of the fridge. That kind of routine may not feel exciting, but it gives you something better than excitement. It gives you control, and control is where money finally stops leaking away like water through a cracked cup. The third habit is closely connected to that, but it deserves its own place because it is where a lot of people quietly lose money. Before you buy more food, rescue what is already in your fridge. Open the refrigerator, check the freezer, look in the pantry, and build a meal from what is already there before you let yourself go shopping again. It sounds almost too simple, but this one habit can save a household a shocking amount of money over a year. Every container of leftovers, every half bag of vegetables, every forgotten piece of chicken in the freezer is not just food. It is cash wearing a disguise. Most people do not waste food because they are careless or lazy. They waste food because modern life is messy. You buy vegetables on Sunday with the best intentions, then work runs late. The kids need something. You feel tired and suddenly takeout becomes the easier answer. A few days later, the healthy groceries you were so proud of are limp dry or strange looking. Then comes the tiny emotional punishment of throwing them away while promising yourself that next week will be different. The problem is that next week usually looks exactly the same unless you build a rule strong enough to interrupt the pattern. A useful rule is to create one clean-out week every month. During that week, you do not do a normal grocery run. You use what you have. Eggs become dinner. Frozen vegetables become soup. Leftover rice becomes fried. Rice, canned beans become a quick bowl. And that lonely pasta box finally gets promoted from pantry decoration to actual food. It may feel a little improvised, even funny, but it trains your brain to see abundance where it used to see inconvenience. This habit also changes the way you shop later. When you force yourself to finish what you already bought, you become more honest at the store. You stop buying the fantasy version of yourself, the person who meal preps perfectly, eats a giant salad every day, and cooks elaborate dinners after a 10-hour workday. Instead, you buy for your real life, your real energy, your real schedule. That is where smart money management begins, not in pretending you are a different person, but in designing your spending around who you actually are. The fourth habit is one of those small daily choices that looks harmless until you calculate it across years. Make your coffee or drinks at home. In the moment, a $5 or $7 coffee does not feel like a financial decision. It feels like a little comfort, a morning ritual, a reward for getting through traffic, emails, meetings, and all the tiny irritations of adult life. But if you buy one almost every workday, that small ritual can easily turn into more than $1,000 a year, and for some people, much more. The point is not that coffee shops are evil. Sometimes a coffee shop is worth it because you are meeting a friend, getting out of the house, working in a different environment, or enjoying a small moment that genuinely improves your day. The problem is when the purchase becomes automatic. You are not choosing it anymore. You are simply reacting to habit, convenience, boredom, or the belief that you deserve a treat every time life feels slightly uncomfortable. Making drinks at home gives you the same caffeine without the financial bleed. You can buy good beans, a decent grinder, a simple coffee maker, a French press, or whatever setup fits your taste and still spend far less than you would at a cafe every morning. Bring it in a travel mug, keep tea at your desk, or make cold brew for the week. It does not have to feel cheap. In fact, once you get used to it, it can feel better because you are enjoying something you made while knowing you did not hand over money just because your routine was on autopilot. The same rule applies to snacks, bottled water, energy drinks, convenience store stops, and little add-ons that sneak into the day. A few dollars here and there can become a full car payment by the end of the month if you never look directly at it. The danger is not one coffee. The danger is the identity of being someone who constantly needs small purchases to get through the day. Once you break that pattern, you do not just save money. You become less dependent on spending as a way to regulate your mood. The fifth habit is packing your own lunch, and yes, it sounds painfully ordinary. Nobody brags about leftovers in a container. Nobody posts a dramatic photo of a turkey sandwich wrapped in foil, like it is a luxury experience. But eating out during the workday is one of the easiest ways for money to disappear without giving you much lasting satisfaction. A basic lunch near an office can cost $12, $15, or $20 before you even think about delivery fees, tips, drinks, and the little extras that somehow follow you to checkout. Bringing lunch from home does not require you to become a perfect meal prep influencer with matching glass containers and color-coded vegetables. It can be as simple as cooking a little extra dinner and packing the leftovers. It can be rice bowls, sandwiches, pasta, soup, salads, or anything that keeps you full and does not make your afternoon feel miserable. The savings are obvious, but the hidden benefit is even better. You remove one more decision from your day. And fewer decisions usually means fewer chances to spend money carelessly. This habit becomes even more powerful when you travel. Airports, hotels, amusement parks, beach towns, and tourist areas all know that convenience can be priced like a luxury. The bottle of water that costs $1 at a grocery store suddenly costs $5 near the gate. A simple breakfast becomes strangely expensive because you are tired, trapped, and surrounded by people who also forgot to plan. When you travel with even a little preparation, you protect yourself from those convenience traps. Buy snacks, water breakfast items, and simple meals from a local grocery store when you arrive. Use restaurants for the meals that actually matter, the local place you wanted to try, the dinner with a view, the experience you will remember. Do not spend half your food budget on overpriced boredom just because you were hungry at the wrong location. This is not about being cheap on vacation. It is about saving your money for the parts of the trip that are actually worth remembering. The sixth habit might be one of the most effective in the modern world, because it fights a problem people barely notice anymore. Make it harder to buy things. We live in a time where spending money has almost no friction. Your card is saved, your address is saved, your face unlocks the payment screen, and a package can be on your doorstep before you have fully thought through whether you even wanted it. That level of convenience feels like progress, but financially, it can become a trap. Impulse buying thrives when there is no pause between desire and action. You see an ad, feel a little excitement, and within seconds the item is yours. No drive to the store, no carrying it through the aisles, no standing in line, no time to reconsider. The brain loves immediate rewards, especially after a stressful day when discipline is already tired. That is why so many purchases happen late at night, during boredom, or after emotionally draining workdays. A smart counter move is to bring friction back into the process. Delete shopping apps from your phone. Remove saved payment methods. Make yourself wait 24 hours before buying anything that is not essential. If you still want it tomorrow, revisit the idea. If you are willing to physically go to the store for it, maybe it matters. If the desire disappears overnight, it was never a need. It was just a passing feeling dressed up as urgency. This one change can be dramatic because most unnecessary purchases are emotional, not practical. We buy things because we feel deprived, stressed, behind, lonely, bored, or convinced that a new object will reset our mood. But the relief is usually brief. The package arrives, you get a small dopamine hit, then the object becomes background clutter, while the credit card bill quietly remembers everything. Slowing down the buying process gives logic time to catch up with emotion. The seventh habit sounds plain, but it saves money, time, and mental energy all at once. Build a simple wardrobe and stop pretending you have nothing to wear. Many people spend hundreds or thousands every year on clothes they barely use. They buy outfits for one-event trends that fade in a month, or cheap pieces that lose shape after a few washes. Then the closet becomes full while somehow still feeling empty. This happens because shopping for clothes often has less to do with clothing and more to do with identity. You buy the version of yourself you hope to become, more stylish, more confident, more admired, more put together. But no shirt can permanently solve insecurity, and no jacket can organize a chaotic life. When clothes become emotional tools, spending becomes endless, because the real problem was never fabric. A better approach is to own fewer things that work well together. Neutral colors, reliable basics, pieces that fit correctly, shoes you actually wear, and items durable enough to survive regular use. When everything coordinates, getting dressed becomes easier. You spend less time deciding, less money replacing junk, and less emotional energy chasing trends designed to make you feel outdated every season. There is also a hidden math lesson here. Expensive does not always mean wasteful, and cheap does not always mean smart. A well-made shirt worn 100 times may cost less per use than a bargain shirt worn 3 times before it stretches, fades, or tears. The same is true for shoes, coats, bags, and workwear. When you think in cost per use instead of sticker price, your spending becomes calmer and smarter. The 8th habit may be the most important of all, because it changes the order of your financial life. Pay yourself first. Most people get paid, then immediately pay rent bills, debt, food subscriptions, random spending, weekend plans, and whatever else appears. If anything is left at the end of the month, they call it savings. Usually there is little or nothing left. Then they wonder why progress feels impossible. The fix is simple in theory and powerful in practice. The moment income arrives, move a percentage automatically into savings or investing before you touch anything else. 10% if that is realistic. 20% if you can manage it. The exact number matters less than the order. Savings should not be the leftovers of your life. It should be one of the first obligations your money meets. When you do this consistently, something interesting happens. You adapt. Human beings are incredibly flexible with spending. If 10% disappears before you see it, your lifestyle slowly learns to live on the remaining 90. If nothing is removed, first spending expands to fill every available dollar. That is why many people earn more each year, yet never feel wealthier. Income grew, but boundaries never did. Paying yourself first also builds self-respect. It sends a quiet message that your future matters as much as your landlord. your utility company, the streaming platforms, and the stores asking for your attention. You stop treating yourself like the last person in line. Over time, that shift becomes bigger than money. It becomes identity. You become someone who protects tomorrow before entertaining today. The truth is, most financial freedom is not created by genius. It is created by systems, automatic transfers, waiting periods, grocery routines, packed lunches, modest cars, repeated habits, and small boundaries that run even when motivation is low. Motivation comes and goes. Systems stay. If your current money life depends on feeling inspired every day, it will collapse the moment life gets messy. In the next part, we will talk about lifestyle inflation, why raises often fail to make people richer, and the final habit that can quietly multiply everything else you have built. The ninth habit begins right when life seems to be improving. Live 1 or 2 years behind your current income. That may sound strange at first, because most people assume that earning more should immediately look like spending more. You get a raise, a promotion, a bonus, or a better job, and the instinct is almost automatic. Upgrade the apartment, upgrade the car, upgrade the phone, upgrade the weekends, upgrade the version of yourself the world gets to see. This pattern has a name: lifestyle inflation. As income rises, expenses quietly rise to meet it. Nothing feels reckless because each upgrade seems justified. You worked hard, you deserve better, and in many ways that is true. The danger is not enjoying progress. The danger is converting every extra dollar into permanent monthly obligations before you have built any real security. That is how people earning strong incomes can still feel trapped. They make more than they ever imagined, yet payday still feels urgent. They have nicer surroundings, better subscriptions, more expensive habits, and larger payments, but very little breathing room. On paper, they look successful. In private, they feel one emergency away from panic. Income went up, but freedom did not. Try a different approach. When your pay increases, keep living close to the version of life that worked before the raise. If you once lived on $4,000 a month and now earn $5,000, do not rush to spend the extra $1,000 just because it exists. Redirect most of it into savings, investments, debt payoff, or an emergency fund. Let the gap between what you earn and what you spend widen instead of vanish. That gap is where power lives. It is what lets you say no to a toxic boss, survive a layoff, take time to recover from burnout, help family when needed, or seize an opportunity without fear. People often chase visible wealth while ignoring invisible strength. A luxury apartment can be photographed. A healthy brokerage account cannot. A new car turns heads. 6 months of living expenses in cash does not. But only one of those things helps when life gets rough. This habit can feel emotionally difficult because comparison is everywhere. Friends upgrade homes, coworkers show off purchases. Social media makes ordinary people feel late to their own lives. You may feel behind for staying modest, while others seem to level up faster. But remember, many upgrades are financed, fragile, or stressful behind the scenes. Appearances rarely show payment plans, anxiety, or sleepless nights. Sometimes the most intelligent financial move looks unimpressive in public. Driving the same car another 3 years, keeping rent low, using an older phone until it truly needs replacing, taking the raise and investing it quietly. These choices do not generate applause, but applause does not pay future bills. Stability does. The 10th and final habit is different because it is not about reducing money outflow. It is about creating more inflow. Build a hobby or skill that earns money instead of only consuming it. Many people think extra income must mean starting a huge business, quitting their job, risking everything, or working 80-hour weeks. It does not have to look like that at all. Often it starts smaller and calmer. Someone who enjoys fitness shares simple training advice online and eventually coaches clients. Someone skilled with spreadsheets helps small businesses organize data. A strong writer edits resumes, creates content, or freelances at night. A person who loves crafts sells handmade products. Someone fluent in another language tutors online. A photographer does weekend shoots. A designer creates templates. A mechanic helps neighbors on the side. The internet has lowered the barrier to earning from useful skills. You do not need a giant company to make progress. Sometimes an extra few $100s a month is enough to change momentum. That money can build an emergency fund faster, wipe out credit card debt, increase investing contributions, or cover expenses without stress. Small side income often matters more than people realize because it creates margin. There is another hidden benefit. When you spend time building something productive, you often spend less time doing expensive, mindless things. Less scrolling leads to fewer impulse purchases. Less boredom leads to fewer convenience orders. Less emotional drift leads to fewer costly habits. You are not only opening a new money stream, you are closing leaks at the same time. And now we reach the truth nobody likes because it is not flashy enough to go viral. Real wealth is usually boring in the beginning. It looks like meal planning, packed lunches, automatic transfers, delayed upgrades, used cars, repeated outfits, and evenings spent learning something useful, while others are endlessly consuming. It does not feel glamorous. It often feels slow. Sometimes it even feels unfair. But over 10, 15, 20 years, boring compounds. Debt shrinks. Investments grow. Stress drops. Choices expand. You sleep differently when emergencies no longer terrify you. You walk differently when you do not need every paycheck to survive. You think differently when your future is no longer built on hope alone. Meanwhile, the exciting path often compounds too. Payments multiply. Subscriptions stack. Lifestyle expectations harden. Raises disappear on contact. Stress becomes normal. People assume they need more income, when what they really need is fewer leaks, stronger habits, and a longer time horizon. So, the real question is not whether you want pleasure or discipline. It is whether you want short-term applause or long-term freedom. Whether you want to look rich this year or become secure over time. Whether you want to impress strangers or protect your future self. 10 years from now, the person in the mirror will know exactly which choice you made. And if you choose the boring path now, there is a good chance that future version of you will be deeply grateful.